Hi, I'm Ruben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections. Today I'm going to talk to you about testing 240 volt receptacles. So I guess I could say 240 volt outlets too. Most people call them outlets. I'm going to call them outlets. So we're talking about testing these outlets, and typically the two places that we find them doing home inspections is going to be for ranges and dryers. Yeah, if you got an electric range or an electric dryer, chances are it's going to be a cord and plug connected appliance. You're going to have a 240 volt cord plugged into a 240 volt outlet, and the outlet is going to look something like this. It's tough to get this to show up right on the video because it's black, so it's tough to see the slots, but this is a 240 volt outlet, and you know, there's probably going to be 4 versions of this that we regularly come across as home inspectors. First, we'll kind of break it into quadrants. First, you're going to have a 3-wire or a 4-wire. Back in the day, all of these 240 volt outlets were going to be 3-wire outlets. You'd have 2 hot slots, and then you'd have the ground. It wasn't really a neutral because we didn't need a neutral. If you've got a 240 volt appliance, it's happy to work with a hot and a hot. The potential between these two is 240 volts, and that's all we need to make the appliance run. And then you'd have the ground as kind of the safety feature. I'm not going to get into the specifics of what the ground is there for, but you're never supposed to have any voltage on that ground wire. It's just kind of the emergency lane in case something goes wrong. But then appliance manufacturers started using 120 volt motors and 120 volt circuitry, and it wouldn't be a huge draw, so they would just kind of cheat, and they would take one of these hot legs and they'd connect the circuit to the ground, and then they'd use the ground to carry that voltage back to complete a 120 volt circuit. Well, you're never really supposed to do it that way, so eventually the electrical code changed, and starting in 1996, the NEC started saying that you can't put these 3-wire 240 volt receptacles in. From now on, they all need to be 4-wire receptacles. You need to have a dedicated ground and a dedicated neutral. So if we are going to have 120 volt circuitry in there, it's going to have its own dedicated path back to the panel. So what does all this mean? You know, from a home inspection perspective, not much. Whether it's a 3-wire or a 4-wire receptacle, it's legal. You can buy a new appliance and you can connect it to a 3-wire receptacle. There's nothing wrong with that. Perfectly acceptable. You just can't install new 3-wire receptacles. That's what it all comes down to. So now that we talked about a little history lesson and why there's a difference between a 3-wire and 4-wire, let's talk about the difference between a dryer and a range. Dryer outlets are going to be 30 amp outlets. Range outlets are going to be 50 amp outlets. Ranges typically run off, either they want a 40 or a 50 amp circuit, so we're looking for a 50 amp receptacle. Now, if it's on a dryer, it's nice to know as a home inspector to be able to identify this. Dryer outlets are going to have this little L-shaped thingy here, whether it's a 3-wire or a 4-wire, it's going to have that little L-shaped receptacle. If it's for a range, it's going to be a straight slot. That's how we can differentiate the two at a glance. However, if we zoom in closely on a 30 amp outlet, for instance, you'll see it actually has 30A stamped right on the outlet. So if I'm a home inspector, if I'm looking in a kitchen and there is no range present there, and side note, most of the time, I don't even get to see this stuff because the appliance is already installed, there's a range there, and I don't go pulling ranges out and unplugging them to test any of this stuff or make sure it's the right receptacle. And I'm going to demonstrate why. It's tough to see on video, tough to appreciate in the video, but I'm going to take a 240 volt plug and I'm going to plug this in, and I'm going to make it look really difficult, okay? Just to help you appreciate how tough it is to plug this in. Let me take this. I'm going to take this, I'm going to plug it in, and okay, I don't know if that demonstrated enough for you how tough it was to get it in, but it's tough to get it out too. Like, there is a lot of friction here. And if you're bending behind a range or something like that, I mean, this would be really tough to plug and unplug. Might end up getting stuck not plugging an appliance back in. So there's the range there, and it's electric. I turn the range on. That's what I do. I don't go pulling stuff apart and taking it all out. But most of the time we don't get to see this. For when we do see it, if I'm in a kitchen and I see that it's a 30 amp outlet designed for a clothes dryer, I would write that up as a defect. And then if there's nothing plugged in, we will test it and we'll make sure that it's energized. To do that, I think the best tool for doing this is a little $6 2-lead tester. It's going to look something like this. This one, I like this one because it's got a light that lights up for 120 volts. It's got another light that goes up for 240 volts. It's about all I see during home inspections. It's got some other voltages here that I never come across as a home inspector. But it'll light up and it'll tell me what's going on. So to test this, I took a video of it, and I apologize. I am not a videographer. My lighting is all wrong here. I tried having it bright in the room so you could see the outlet, and then you couldn't see the light on the tester. So I dimmed it down, and now you can't see the outlet so well. But you can see in the video here, we're gonna start out by taking 2 leads, and I'll stick them into the 2 hot slots. And we know they're the 2 hot slots because they are a mirror image of each other. They both have 120 volts, and if I put my testers in each one, the potential between the two is 240 volts. If I take my tester and I stick one in the hot slot, I leave it in the hot slot, and I stick the other in either the neutral or the ground, either one, the potential between the hot and neutral or ground is 120 volts. So that's our basic test. You can do that with any 2-lead tester, and now I have verified that there is power going to the outlet. So that's about it. That's kind of the 2 things I look at as a home inspector. Is it the right type of receptacle, and is it energized? If I'm missing anything, leave a comment on the video. All right, thank you so much for watching.